All right, let's talk about one of the most ambitious, expensive, and, yeah, controversial projects in the history of gaming, Star Citizen. This is a game that promises you an entire universe, but it's been in the works for over a decade now. So today, we're going to unpack the incredible tech, that wild timeline, and all the drama behind this truly epic project.
You see quotes like that, and it really gets to the heart of this whole thing. It's all powered by this one massive dream, right? The dream of a totally seamless universe you can just explore. It's a vision so big it gets players hooked. And, well, it pushes developers to the absolute edge of what anyone thought was possible. Okay, but that leads to the first huge problem. I mean, think about it. How in the world do you actually build a universe that's practically infinite without, an infinite number of artists and an infinite budget? This is what they call the creation problem. And the way the developers think about this is pretty cool, actually. They call each planet a mystery candy box. The whole point isn't just to spit out endless, boring terrain. No, it's to give every single world its own personality. Some might be kind of plain, others could be totally alien and bizarre. The real goal is to make you, the player, feel something real when you land, whether it's excitement or even disappointment, or just pure awe. It's like you're unwrapping this endless box of chocolates, never knowing what you're going to get. So how do they do it? Well, the only way that's even remotely possible is with something called procedural generation. Now, think of it like controlled chaos. Instead of an artist sitting down and hand-painting an entire planet, which would take forever, they design the rules for how that planet should build itself. They use algorithms to create what's called noise, which is just a fancy term for complex, random-looking patterns. Then the artist can tweak the math behind that noise to guide the computer, telling it, hey, make more mountains here, or let's get some deep canyons over there. Finally, they just wrap that whole 2D map onto a 3D sphere, and bam, you've got a planet. All right, so you've used your fancy procedural generation to create this massive universe. Fantastic. But now you've got an even bigger problem, maybe the hardest one of all. How do you get this ridiculously huge world to actually run on a regular person's computer without, literally melting it? The answer is a piece of tech they had to build from scratch. It's called Object Container Streaming, or OCS for short. Now look, other games do similar stuff, but the sheer mind-boggling scale of Star Citizen meant that nothing off the shelf was going to cut it. They had to invent their own super complex system just to manage which tiny slice of the universe your computer is thinking about at any given moment. And honestly, the best way to wrap your head around it is to picture those Russian matryoshka dolls. The ones that nest inside each other. Okay, so the biggest doll, that's the whole universe. You crack it open, and inside, solar systems. You open one of those up and you find planets. Open a planet, you get cities. Inside a city, you've got buildings. And inside a building, you've got rooms. The trick is, your computer only has to care about the one doll you're currently standing in. That's it. And the efficiency here it's just staggering. Let's put it this way. When you're standing inside one little shop on one planet, your PC is only loading and processing a microscopic slice of the game. We're talking 1/1,000,000th of 1% of the entire universe. Everything else, the city right outside the door, the other planets in the system, the next solar system over, it's like it doesn't even exist for your computer. It's completely unloaded. So you can imagine this insane level of technical ambition? It has huge consequences. It completely blows up the timeline and the scope of the project, which leads us directly into this decade-plus development cycle, where you've got this incredible ambition just constantly slamming into reality. So let's look at the timeline. It all kicked off with a Kickstarter way back in 2012. But really, the game we're talking about today, it was completely redefined in 2016. That was the year the team finally figured out how to make those full-scale explorable planets. And once they had that breakthrough, everything changed. They were so fueled by this new tech, plus some pretty controversial polls where just a tiny fraction of backers voted for even more features, and the whole project's scope just exploded. That was it. That was the point of no return. And as you can probably guess, this super long timeline and the constantly growing list of features has split the community right down the middle. On one side, you've got backers who are just completely fed up. They see it as the definition of development hell, just a long story of missed deadlines and broken promises. But then, on the other side, you've got this staunch defenders. And their argument is, look, this is just what it costs to do something truly groundbreaking.
From where they're standing, if you're going to build something that's never been done before, basically from the engine on up, it's just going to take a totally unprecedented amount of time. Simple as that.
So, okay, let's zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture. How does this gigantic decade-plus project actually compare to the rest of the games industry today?
A perfect comparison is another huge space RPG, Starfield. Now, its development started right around the same time Star Citizen had its big pivot in 2016. But Starfield came out in about 8 years. So what's the difference? Well, Starfield was built on an upgraded, but still existing, game engine, and it relies on loading screens and separate instanced zones. And those are the exact technical problems that Star Citizen's core tech is built to get rid of completely. But getting rid of them, that costs you years and years of extra development time.
And then there's the money, that budget. Look, over $700 million from crowdfunding, that sounds like a crazy amount of money, right? But let's put it in perspective. A game that's actually out, like the free-to-play shooter Apex Legends, made over $2 billion in revenue in just its first 3 years. That shows you the huge gap between a project that's funded by promises and a live game that's making money every single day. In that world, Star Citizen is still kind of just warming up on the bench.
So, after all the incredible tech, all the time that's passed, and all the drama, what does it all really mean? Here's the thing. Whether Star Citizen eventually succeeds or if it fails spectacularly, its journey is already a huge deal. It's basically a massive experiment. It's stress testing the absolute limits of what game engines can do and what the whole crowdfunding model can handle. And it's forcing the entire industry to have these really tough but necessary conversations about things like scope creep, transparency, and how you manage what players expect from you.
So at the end of the day, what's the takeaway here? The story of Star Citizen, it's about way more than just one game. It's a saga, playing out in real time, about the incredible cost, the mind-bending complexity, and yeah, the absolute unwavering passion that drives people to chase that next giant leap in gaming. So is it the blueprint for the future? Or is it a cautionary tale? Right now, we just don't know. For now, the universe is still loading.